It's the series finale for Dark Brandon. President Biden giving a bitter and divisive farewell speech from the Oval before he shuffles off into the Delaware sunset with Hunter.
I want to warn the country of some things that give me great concern. This is a dangerous and that's a dangerous concentration of power in the hands of a very few ultra-wealthy people. And the dangerous consequences if their abuse of power is left unchecked. Today, an oligarchy is taking shape in America of extreme wealth, power, and influence that literally threatens our entire democracy. Americans are being buried under an avalanche of misinformation and disinformation, enabling the abuse of power. The free press is crumbling. Editors are disappearing. Social media is giving up on fact-checking. The truth is smothered by lies told for power and for profit.
So let's get this straight. The big guy is all of a sudden concerned about the corrupting influence of billionaires in politics, just 2 weeks after awarding a Presidential Medal of Freedom to the godfather of dirty money in politics, George Soros. Meanwhile, it was a thrill up the leg for Obama, and now it's a chill down the spine for Joe Biden. The media fawning over old Yeller's final speech.
He talked about the free press crumbling, which put a shiver down my spine, and then talked about how truth is being sacrificed for lies for the purposes of power and profit. So this is important because he has essentially decided not to brag on the way out about what he did. It put a chill down my spine.
A speech for the history books.
One of the best speeches I've ever heard Joe Biden give.
Sort of a love letter to the country.
It's a lasting speech.
It was deeply personal, Nora. You did see the photos of the family sitting behind President Biden.
And deeply personal it was. Dougie, Kamala, and Dr. Jill were seated at Joe's side during the speech, looking like they were holding a seance. And with the credits rolling on the Joe Show, the White House is trying to smooth over Biden's cranky old man persona by releasing a video portraying Joe as your lovable milkshake guzzling goofball grandpa.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you doing, sir?
Just came around to say hi. Hey, by the way, can you make me a milkshake?
Yeah, there's even like 5 minutes.
All right.
On it, sir.
All right. And he's still waiting for that milkshake, Greg. When you heard the word oligarchy uttered last night, what went through your mind?
That he had no idea what he was talking about. Nothing there. Look, his slurring was extra noticeable tonight. And it's when 8 words, become one long train derailment. I'm pretty sure the medical staff has already checked out. They didn't even replace the batteries in his life alert. They just left. Axelrod is so smart when he said, "This is the best speech I ever heard by Joe Biden." It's like, the bar's pretty low. That's like saying, "This is the best colonoscopy I've ever had." Give my regards to the doctor. Joe clearly doesn't get it. He's like the guy who's supposed to make a wedding toast, but then recites all the sexual escapades of the groom in front of the horrified guests. There's also something that makes all criticism pointless. He's blissfully ignorant of the past 4 years. Yeah. Another analogy, criticizing a drunk who blacked out and doesn't remember he ran through Walmart naked singing "We Are the Champions." To him, it never happened. I think this is why his speech left everybody colder than his body temperature. There's no closure because with Biden, you can't come to terms with someone who doesn't know what the terms are. And it is kind of a window into politics in general that all you really noticed was the artifice because the individual wasn't there. The speech was banal and bitter. The whole enterprise became meaningless and fake. You just saw the set. It's like, it was like the address had the authenticity of the picture you get with a new photo frame. You're only supposed to look at the frame, not what's in it. That address was a frame with nobody in it.
Dana, last night you were struggling to find something nice to say about the farewell address. 24 hours later, anything?
Nothing has, it's over. It's in the rearview mirror. I mean, it was a lot of hype for the last final speech. There was no substance. There was no direction. Nobody will remember it in a week. It was disjointed. They tried to start with the breaking news about the ceasefire. They went to an attempt at soaring rhetoric. And also, I would fault the speechwriters for this. You have a guy who is basically humiliated for somebody who lost to Donald, well, one, kicked out of his party. He says he would have beat Donald Trump. We all know that he was losing by 400 electoral votes. You have somebody who is not a great orator, and they try to give him lines that Ronald Reagan could deliver. And then they start to add all the other little pet project things for all of the little super PACs that they're going to do when they leave the White House. Where do you think this tech oligarchy stuff is coming from? How soon do you think you're going to see some super PACs? They're going to fight against the big tech guys now. Now, they didn't care about the tech guys when they were helping them on the Russian disinformation package. They didn't care about any of that. They didn't care about the tech guys when they were calling them and telling them to take down COVID vaccine disinformation. But now they care. And also, look, I get it. A lot of those guys have turned on a dime, but that's the way the election went. I felt that at the end when he was talking about needing to get dark money out of politics, that's what really set me over the edge. And that's when I decided I gotta put away my notes that says every president deserves a chance to say goodbye. And, you know, this is really nice. And he's served 50 years and he's a patriot and loves his country. Because I said, the Democrats got more dark money than any entity in the history of politics in this past election. They blew it all. And last week, he gave the Medal of Freedom to George Soros. How can you possibly say that? And every poll is showing that nobody feels like he has done a good job. I talked about the one from Gallup yesterday. Last night, then we had Fox News poll. More came out today from, I think, the USA Today poll. Nobody thinks anything is better.
Harold, is the Democratic Party, through Joe Biden's speech, which you probably didn't write, trying to reposition themselves now against the tech tycoons after losing them?
Good to be with you. I don't think so. I don't think the Democratic Party wrote that speech. I was looking, I don't agree with what everybody said, but I do think the sentiment I agree with. I thought the speech could have been more cheerful, more optimistic, could have talked more about the accomplishments and perhaps where he was born, where he was raised, how those values defined and informed his public service. And he would hope the next generation of leaders, however they were born, wherever they were born, would believe in the experiment of America and the success of this great nation, that we're all accountable for it. I don't believe that you should ever begrudge anyone's success or people making money, particularly people who came from very humble backgrounds. I understand the need and the desire as an American to want more growth for every American and for all of us to be able to share in the growth and the prosperity and to give people equal chances to succeed. But I think going after the innovation and tech community, I love the word oligarchy. I remember it was one of the words I didn't get right in my 8th grade English exam. So I've learned it and known it ever since then. I knew what he was trying to get at, but I thought there was a better way to do that. He was granted 15 minutes in front of the entire country last night. 11 presidents have been able to do this, a farewell address like this. He had every right to do what he did, but I would have done it differently, and I would have wanted to end on a cheerier and more optimistic note, because he did a lot of things that I think the country 20 years from now will be appreciative of. But listening to that, I think, Greg, I think, Dana, your points about, and Katie, I heard you say something even earlier about it. This is, unfortunately, I think this is what people may remember as his last remarks.
He won't remember it, though.
Blissfully.
Odd that he would take this opportunity to warn the country about all these things that he never, ever talked about in the last 4 years.
Well, to his credit, I mean, he used the word oligarchy because he's very familiar with them. He's familiar with Russian oligarchs who paid Hunter. He's familiar with Ukrainian oligarchs who paid Hunter. So to use that word actually is very close to the business deals that made his family rich that he's now going to try and enjoy, given he pardoned Hunter for the crimes that came along with enriching his family that way. But in terms of the tone of the speech, I thought that it just showed how dishonest Joe Biden was when he ran for office in 2020. He was supposed to be this uniter who was going to, save the soul of the country and restore unity and bring everybody together. And yet he came out at the end as one of the most far-left progressive presidents we've ever had. And it's very difficult to talk about cheery accomplishments when your policies have inflicted harm on Americans in ways that we haven't seen in decades, whether it's with inflation or whether it's with a hostage crisis that is still ongoing today. And I understand that Joe Biden is bitter with his own party after they kicked him out. But last night he came out to the American people and took it out on them. And he took it out on people who he was perfectly happy with partnering with, the big tech companies, when he used them to get elected in 2020 and then used them when he was in the Oval Office in the federal government to wield his power to violate the constitutional rights of Americans. And then finally, Barack Obama comes out on Twitter last night to praise Joe Biden after knifing him in the back, pushing him off the campaign trail after he also tried to present Joe as the guy who was going to beat Trump, and then all of a sudden turned around and didn't explain why he had to leave the race. So it was ugly, but to his credit, it's difficult to come out and have a nice speech about your accomplishments when the American people are so unhappy and you just lost to a guy who did everything possible to keep from regaining the White House.
So I differ there. He was wrong to do what he did, but I thought he had something positive to say. I agree with the sentiment, but I thought he had more positive things to say, and I think he missed the real opportunity.
Well, I thought, like Axe, it was his best speech ever because it was his last. Coming up, Trump nominees continue to steamroll the Democrats. Pam Bondi just smacked down Adam Schiff. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.